Right now, Pastor Lindsey Williams joining us via the telephone. Thank you for coming on InfoWars Nightly News. This is commercial free. You've got another interview coming up in about 50 minutes, so I'm going to give you the floor right now for most of that. Lindsey, break down the 10 points. Go for it all, and thank you for joining us.
After the election, I contacted my elite friend. I knew that he would know some things that I didn't know. People were bumfuzzled. They were flabbergasted. They didn't know what to do. They were in disarray. And I asked him the question, what can we expect in the next 4 years? The information he gave me was so startling that the only way I know to describe it is the most startling thing that anyone has heard since the founding of the United States of America. Yes, you heard me correctly. I know that's a big statement, but I was given 10 agendas that the American people will face over the next 4 years. I was so startled that I didn't do a radio show for nearly 3 weeks. And I finally said, okay, it's time to tell the American people the facts. And I'd like to give you those 10 agendas at this point. Some of them are encouraging, some of them are startling. Here we go. I hope that you'll write them down. You'll watch them happen. First of all, I'd like to make a prediction based on what my elite friend told me that you will find very interesting. The elite are not ready for a financial collapse yet. I hope you caught that. I know nearly all the newsletters, nearly everyone out there in the financial field is saying, oh, it's going to be a collapse. After physical collapse, going to be a collapse. No. The elite do not want a financial collapse yet. Why not? There's a very definite reason why not, and that brings me to the second part of this agenda, and this word is very powerful. They want to force debt creation. I hope you caught the word forced. They're going to force debt creation to the point that every nation in the world, every state in America, every city, every county, every individual homeowner and head of a household, they want them into such massive debt, and they intend to create it by certain methods, which I'll attempt to describe if I can. Now, many of you remember years ago, 30, 40 years ago, the first credit card that was ever out there was American Express. And at the time, I was a pastor in Florida. It was back in the 60s, and I went and got one. MasterCard, Visa, none of these were around. Well, not too many months ago, you heard what happened. All the banks were bailed out, and they came around to American Express, and they said, well, you're too big to fail also. And they said, you've got to become a bank. You cannot be a credit card any longer. And they forced America. Did you catch that word? They forced Bank of America, American Express, they forced them to become a bank. They did the same thing with the banks. You remember that it was QE1, and just prior to that, they had said the entire world is going to collapse. They threatened Congress and said there'll be riots. There's going to be a collapse. You must pass this bill. And Congress passed it, and QE1 came into being, and they bailed out the banks that they wanted to succeed and left the others to fail. It was a forced debt creation. Now, they're doing the same thing with students, college students. Yes, they have convinced you that you no longer can go to college without a government loan. This is a part of the agenda. One of the agendas of the elite for the next 4 years is to get every single college student they can into so much debt that when they graduate from college and can't find a job doing anything but flipping burgers or working in some fast food restaurant or maybe working for Walmart or Target, you will be so in debt that you will gladly listen to them whenever they say, we have a new world order for you. We have a new currency for you. Just give up your Constitution and everything will be fine. Do you understand why they don't want a collapse yet? Because they want to force such debt creation on everyone. Now, right now you're hearing physical cliff. Oh, my goodness, it's everywhere. This is a part of debt creation. Are you catching this? They are going to use the physical cliff in order to do certain things to the middle class. And that brings me to the third agenda that my elite friend informed me about. If you're a part of the middle class, what you're hearing, tax the rich, tax the rich. Listen, that is such a smokescreen, it's almost unbelievable. Never mind taxing the rich. The rich can protect their funds, whether it be in Liechtenstein or in the Caymans or someplace else. What are they going to do to the middle class of Americans who work 9 to 5, get a paycheck, and everything's turned in on them, and there's no way they can get around it, nothing they can do about it? I have a prediction for you. Based on what I have been told from my elite friend, the middle class, and watch it, you'll see it happen, the middle class is going to be taxed into oblivion. No, I know you're not hearing anything about this. You're going to watch it happen. It'll happen now, after this fiscal cliff, and then gradually over the next 4 years, you are going to see every type of tax imaginable. I'm going to mention a few that they very, very easily could use. They could use a marginal minimum tax. They could use a national sales tax. Obama has already declared that Obamacare, Supreme Court said it, it's going to be a tax. There was no way that they could get you to pay a premium. I hope you caught the word. Whenever you get an insurance policy, you pay a premium. Obamacare, they knew that they couldn't get by with that premium idea. So the Supreme Court declared Obamacare a tax. Well, what happened? This set a chain reaction off that you saw it just a few days ago. Walmart, America's largest retail employer, Walmart said, okay, if that's the way you want it, here's what we're going to do. This is a part of the forced debt creation that they're going to put you in. Walmart said, okay, anybody working 30 hours or more, we're going to have to pay for Obamacare. And they said we can't afford that and still stack them high and sell them cheap at the same time. So as a result, they are saying no one except management personnel at Walmart from now on will work as many as 30 hours. That are going to be 29 hours and less. Now, your fast food restaurants are going to do the same thing. Mark my words, Target and the rest of them will do the same thing. What are they doing? Can you rent an apartment or pay for a house and still operate an automobile at the same time on less than 30 hours per week? No way in the world you can do it. Well, what's it going to do? It is going to put you into a debt crunch that is going to be a part of the forced debt creation that the elite have already planned. As my elite friend told me, this is in the agenda. Now, please, those of you who have heard me on Alex Jones Show and InfoWars over the years, you remember I was on Alex Jones Show. It's in the archives. In 2009, Mr. Fromm and I were on the phone together, and he said to me, now this was my 87-year-old elite friend who died about a year and a half ago, and he said to me one day on the phone, he said, Chaplain, within a few years, he said 2 years at the time, we're up about 3 years now, he said, you will be so broke you will not be able to do anything about it. And at the time he said that in 2009, I could not understand what the man was talking about. I can readily see it today because when I was given these 10 agendas, I realized that they are going to tax the middle class of America into oblivion. They're only using the ploy of tax or reach, and that's not it. I want to give you a formula. I was just given it the other day. You write this down, and when you figure out this formula on your calculator, I want you to tell me how long your home can survive using this formula for the devaluation of the dollar month after month and the debt creation they plan to put you in. First of all, because of the $40 billion that the Federal Reserve is pulling out of thin air and buying mortgage-backed securities every month, with that 40%, comes an automatic devaluation of the American dollar by approximately 3%, between 3 and 4%. Now, add on top of that new taxes. Mark my words, you're going to see that. Add on that new taxes that are the forced debt creation that will come out of a result of this physical cliff. Then put on top of that the tax for Obamacare, which you're going to begin paying next year. Now, you notice this is a progressive thing over a period of this 4 years of administration. You're not going to have all this happen tomorrow morning. You've got the 3% right now. You have the taxes that you'll hear about in a few weeks as a result of the fiscal cliff, and it'll be desperate, or we're all going to fall. Then you've got Obamacare that's going to kick in the 1st of 2013. Then you've got food prices that are going to escalate on top of that, just like they've been doing for the past year. Then you've got a 30-hour work week instead of a 50-hour work week. Now, you calculate all of that out on your calculator, and you tell me how long it will be that you can put clothes on the back of the family, food on the dinner table, gas in the gas tank, and still pay the mortgage payment. And when the children are crying and you can't buy enough food to put on the table, and you have a choice between food on the table or paying the mortgage payment, what are you going to do? You're going to take care of the children. So what's going to happen to the mortgage payment? Exactly what the elite have planned already behind closed doors. It is calculated how long it will take before the majority of Americans that already haven't lost their houses will lose their houses, and they want to own, through this new program of the Federal Reserve, which is part of the elite Federal Reserve and not a part of the federal government, and they are the New World Order. And how long will it be before they will own every piece of mortgaged real estate in the United States of America? I hope you caught this. It's already planned. They have calculated this out. They gave it to me, and they know how long it's going to be before they'll be able to say, okay, you can't make that payment. So what are you going to do? Well, I'll go to the next agenda of the elite. The debt limit will be suspended so that the United States of America, our government, can spend into oblivion. And it's going to happen. Mark my words, you'll see it as a result of this physical cliff thing. Next, the dollar is scheduled, please now, this is over a period of 4 years, the dollar is scheduled to be phased out. Let me give you an example. You heard it last week. It was on the news. You even heard it right there on Alex Jones' show. Our president went to Phnom Penh in Asia, and he was going over to a summit. There were 15 Asian nations comprising 1/2 of the world's population, and they were forming a regional comprehensive economic partnership, and our president wanted the United States of America to be included. He actually attended the summit, and they basically thumbed their nose at him and told him to go home. Now, I want you to listen to what happened at that summit. This Southeastern Asian Association of Nations included China, India, Japan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, 3 billion Asians and 15 Asian nations. This happened just last week, and they said we will no longer use the reserve currency of the world in sale and trade amongst 1/2 of the people of the world. So the American dollar now is going to be floating around out there, unwanted, unused. I'm sure you knew what happened with the BRICS group, which was Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, on April the 5th of 2012, when they said 43% of the world's population, 18% of the world's GDP, and 53% of the world's global financial capital. And they said, we're not going to use the American dollar any longer for sale and trade of products amongst ourselves. Folks, the dollar is dead. The dollar has already died. In 6 to 9 months to a year maximum, these unwanted, unusual dollars are coming home. The elite, so I have been told by my elite friend, have already calculated how long it will be before the dollar will be phased out to the point that you will be living in a second-rate nation currency, and it is scheduled over this next 4 years. Now, let me give you 3 factors that you will never know about if you don't hear it right here on InfoWars today. I was told privately, and very I don't know how to say it. I was just told by my elite friend, he said, Chaplain, there are 3 factions out there now that you need to know about. He said, number 1, I know what they are, the old-time elite. I lived with them for 3 years. He said, number 2, we have a president now that's like a bull in a china shop. He said he is totally out of control. He double-crossed the elite. Please, you remember this. The Cross-Canada Pipeline, they wanted it. He said no, turned thumbs down on it. There was the Dodd-Frank bill. He passed it through. The elite didn't want it. Then thirdly, he double-crossed them because they had said you've got to open up public public lands for oil drilling. Because of the chaos in the Middle East, we need to produce from our own American oil fields. And Obama turned his thumbs down on it, flipped his nose at the elite, said, I'm going to do what my Muslim Brotherhood friends want me to do. He bowed before the king of Saudi Arabia when he went over there. And as a result today, you have three factions that are working against each other, and I'll show you what's going to happen. You've got the elite, the old-time elite. You've got an out-of-control president that even they are having trouble with, and I don't know what they might do with him. And I'm not making any predictions either. Then you have a new segment. Please, you must see this. There is and this is what they're calling it. They're calling it, I heard the words. He said it right there over the phone to me. He said, Chaplain, we have a renegade elite that is rising up in the world, which they didn't expect. What is that? Like the Phnom Penh meeting of last week, like the BRICS group that met back in April. These nations are saying, we don't want to fool with you, elite, the old-fashioned elite anymore. We're going to rise up and through China form our own allies. What's it going to happen? You remember the old Western movies years ago? There would be a saloon, and there's this whole room filled with people, and all of a sudden the fight would start because somebody didn't think the crap table was being handled correctly. And the whole saloon, before you knew it, was in mass chaos, and everybody was fighting. And if you happened to be sitting in the middle of that saloon when it happened, oh, my goodness, you had to fight your way out. There was no other way out. I'm warning you right now. You, the middle class of America, you are caught right now between an elite, an out-of-control president, a renegade elite that they're not quite sure what to do with, but they'll find a way, mark my words. And you, as a middle class of America, are caught right in the midst of a fist fight, and it is going to be horrifying what you are going to suffer because of what's happening right now amongst the elite out there fighting with these other groups. Mark my words, you must have a mindset change. You must know what to do in light of these things that are taking place. Now, I want to give you the next agenda. Right now, in the United States of America, 38% of every person in this country is receiving some sort of remuneration from some government, either federal or state. It may be Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. It may be some other payment or whatever. Maybe you work for the government or you got a pension from the government. 38% of all the people in America right now receive some sort of payment from the government. I want to give you the figure 4 years from now. They've already calculated. I mean, this is already figured into their agendas. 4 years from now, the elite plan to have 70% of the people of the United States of America receiving some sort of remuneration from the government. I'm going to make a prediction based on what my elite friend just told me as he was giving me these things. There will never be another honest election in the United States of America. Now, I'm not saying that the past one was honest. But you'll never see one that even comes close to being honest from now on, because the elite know that whoever writes that paycheck is also going to get the vote. And from this point on, if they succeed, and by God's grace, they won't succeed. You and I must succeed. Alex Jones must succeed. InfoWars must. But if they succeed and have their way, we will never have another honest election in the United States of America. I want to give you the gold prices. That's right. They've even calculated this in. You say, you mean to tell me that they've calculated gold 4 years from now? Yeah, they calculated it 4 years ago. You ready? In 2008, you remember, this is history. This is not a prediction. In 2008, gold was $800 an ounce. Today, gold is $1,700 an ounce approximately this morning. And in 2016, would you like to know where it's going? They already have it figured. They must take it to $3,000 an ounce. Yes, that's right. I don't sell it, but Alice can tell you where to get it. They've got to take it to $3,000 an ounce, and silver must go up in order to be able to bring in the new world currency. And in order to do it, they're going to back it by gold and silver. Mark my words. Well, I have another one that I must cover. And, Alex, you were asking about this when I was on your show on yesterday. Many of you will remember that back in about 2007, 2008, I was on the phone with Mr. Fromm. Yeah, I have no problem mentioning it because we were talking together, and he mentioned a phrase that so startled me having been a minister of the gospel for 57 years. He said, Chaplain, the devil's Messiah. I was fascinated. I wondered what in the world he was talking about. So I went back and I said, okay, Ken, let's back up a little bit. I'd like to know what you're talking about. That was the time that he made the statement to me. He said, the new world order cannot be brought in until first we have taken the God that made America great out of the classroom, out of the courtroom, out of public offices, out of the government in Washington. And he went on to tell me, and I gave it back in a DVD series back in those days entitled The Elite Speak. I gave you all the facets of what the devil's Messiah was going to be. They have a devil's Messiah agenda for the next 4 years. Pastors, if ever you listen to me, you've got to listen to me now. You heard me say a few moments ago that the reason they don't want to collapse right now is because they want to force debt creation on everybody. This includes your church. Please, as the dollar devaluates, and I have given you the percentages that it will devaluate month after month, you figured on your own calculator. How long will it be before and here's the plan, how long will it be before the people in your congregation can no longer give as they're giving right now? Because the dollar has devalued to the point that it will be over the next 4 years, and the plan of the elite is to confiscate your church so that they can tell you what to preach, because they must do away with the God that made America great. And you few pastors that are still left out there, you're still a part of what this really is. You remember back in the days of Jerry Falwell. You remember the moral majority. I'm sorry to have to tell you, pastors, I've been a minister of the gospel all these years, and I have to be honest with you. You are an immoral minority today, and you are on the chopping block. And what you don't know is that they already have an agenda to take over your church, because when those people can't give and you can't make the church payment, they will come in and take your church, just like they are going to take the private homes that the Federal Reserve now is buying $40 billion of mortgage-backed securities every month, and the shopping center that can't make its payment, and the small business that has a small business loan based on a real estate as a collateral. They are going to take your church, and it is part of their agenda. You must, pastors, you must pay off the mortgage on that church, and you must pay it off immediately, or you're going to lose it, and they will dictate to your pastor what you ought to preach, because it'll be a part of the New World Order. The other day I was speaking to a pastor along this line privately. I love him. I won't mention his name because I respect him so much. And the first thing he said, well, Chaplain, that means that the dollar at some point is going to be in trouble and have a collapse. I said, Pastor, you're exactly right. First thing he said to me, I couldn't believe it. He said, what about my pension? He said, am I going to lose it? Well, I've got a prediction for you based on what my elite friend told me just a few days ago. Pastor, if you're 50 years of age and under, you don't have a pension. You'll never get it. With what's happening to the dollar, when the dollar fails, what's going to happen to the pension plans? What's going to happen to the life insurance companies? I'll let you decide it for yourselves. The Devil's Messiah program for the next 4 years, one of the agendas is to confiscate your church, be able to complete the progress of what they began years ago when they started this plan through the 401c3 organizational status, and putting you into the condition that they want you in, so that you think that the Constitution of the United States of America says there is a separation of church and state. You'll never find that phrase anywhere in the Constitution of the United States of America. They have made you believe it, just like they've caused you to believe in the physical cliff, which likewise is a smokescreen and farce for the purpose of being able to bring on the forced debt creation that they want you on. Well, I have to give you 1 or 2 more, and then I think I'll probably have covered these 10. Folks, you're going to see, now mark it down, you'll see this happen over a 4-year period, not tomorrow morning, but over a 4-year period. You are going to see, and it's part of the agenda, to bring in millions of Muslims into the United States of America as citizens. And the wish of Mr. Obama, Now, this is not the wish of the elite. I've told you many times that the elite are not communist and they're not Muslim. They only use both of those, and when they get through with them, they'll throw them out in the bathwater. But I was told by my elite friend that one of the agendas of this out-of-control president, who they themselves are even concerned about, is to bring millions of Muslims into the United States of America and give them citizenship in the next. Why do you think he's talking about the people to the south and from Mexico and the Hispanics and those that came in illegally? That's not what the end of the agenda is all about. That, again, is a distraction from what he wants to do in bringing in millions of Muslims so that he can initiate Sharia law into America, which will nullify the Constitution of our country, and it is a part of an agenda over the next 4 years that you'll see gradually take place, and they'll do it so slowly that it'll be like the frog boiling in the pot, and you won't even realize what is happening to you. You must, the last agenda, you must become your own doctor. This Obamacare is the exact opposite of what you really think it's going to be. Any person that's my age, you're even unwanted. They don't need you around, and you won't have a chance. You'll be waiting in the emergency room for 24 hours in order to get service. Mark my words, 40%, and I've made a survey, and I've talked to David Jonda, a very prominent practicing physician today who has a nationwide radio show, and he said, Chaplain, 40% of the medical professionals in America are going to quit whenever Obamacare comes in. Can you imagine how long you'll be waiting in the room of the emergency room on any time that you want medical service? So, folks, you must have a mindset change. You positively must prepare for the inevitable. You can, and if you will begin now, you can prepare for what you're going to see happen in coming days, Alex.
Okay, Lindsey, we're about 20 minutes in right now. We got about another 20 minutes left here. I want to talk about prophecyclub.com. People can go there and find all the different works you've done. You've put out just this week, when you broke this with us yesterday, a group of DVDs breaking down the problems, but also a group of DVDs breaking down the solutions. And so I want to get into solutions, what the so-called elites or alpha maggots are doing. But if folks go to prophecyclub.com, they can obviously find the new DVD sets. There's also a number, which I meant to have here in front of me, but I don't have. So to tell people about the 2 DVD sets and how they get them and the phone number, and then let's go into any other points on what they're planning, and then some of the solutions for the now 19 minutes we've got left.
After I was given this information by my elite friend, I thought, what am I going to do? I began preparing. I said, I must record it first, otherwise people will say I never said it. So I produced a 3-hour and 29-minute DVD series entitled The Next 4 Years, Everything You Can Expect. When I got through with that, I was so appalled. Remember, I was a pastor for 12 years and a missionary for many years in Alaska. With a pastor's heart, I said, I can't leave people hanging there. We prepared a second DVD series entitled How to Survive the Next 4 Years, and I got 2 of the finest financial professionals of America together to help me. Please, I hope you'll take down our number, and then I won't say any more about it. Our toll-free number is 1-888-799-6111, or you can go on the web to prophecyclub.com, prophecyclub.com, or toll-free 24 hours a day, 888-799-6111. Now, I have never done anything like this before. We've never given solutions to this extent before. First of all, you must watch the derivative market. They told me that you can tell the sign that the average person can know before the dollar is going to come to a collapse. It will at some point. The euro is going to collapse. The American dollar will collapse. At some point, it's not going to take place. I don't think, from what my elite friends told me, that it's going to take place within the next 2, maybe even 3 years. But at some point down the line, it is going to happen. And they're going to use the derivative market as the method of collapsing all of the currencies of the world.
Sure, they create the mega debt, the 1,000+ trillion. They get their people into government. They sign them onto that. They tell us that that we owe all the tens of trillions when most of it isn't our debt. That's how they've taken down third world countries. Now they've done it to Europe. Now they're doing it to us. It's about domestication. So it's not just about money. It's about power and control. And I understand that I know who your source is. And I believe that he believes what he's saying, and most of it has been happening accurately. And I can see a lot of it in the news as well and from my sources. But, I mean, you know, the dollar will be dead. Things are going to go to hell in a handbasket by the end of 2012. I mean, it was this big event. Now it'll just collapse over the next 3 to 4 years. Are you saying that just my interpretation of what he said was wrong? Or can you explain that to me?
Well, he explained it to me. In fact, I oftentimes say to my elite friend, I say, wait a minute, you got me in trouble. You said certain things and they're not happening exactly like you said it. And then sometimes he'll say to me, well, Chaplain, go get yourself out of a mess. We're doing the best we can. Other times he'll explain it. He explained this one, Alex, and let me try if I may. The dollar is already dead. It just hasn't come home to roost. What happened in Phnom Penh last week, the dollar, trillions of dollars are floating around out there now that haven't come home yet. What happened when the BRICS group met and formed their meeting? Look to some others, if you will. You remember the largest trade agreement that was ever signed in the history of the world was signed in February of 2012 when China and Japan said that they wouldn't use the American dollar in trade amongst themselves. Now, let me just list very quickly the nations that have already signed trade agreements: China and Russia, China and Brazil, China and Australia, China and Japan, India and Japan. And then there was the India and China, junk oil. Then there was Iran and Russia. Then there was China and Chile. Then there was China and the United Arab Emirates. Then there was China and Africa. And the Africans' biggest bank, the Standard Bank in Africa, said, we'll handle any transaction that you want handled, not using American dollars, for any country in Africa. Then there was the BRICS agreement. Then there was the very latest one between China and Russia. And all of these trade agreements have basically nullified the American dollar. You say, well, I can still go.
Sure, and I want to be clear. Lindsey, I've been saying the dollar's going to die. Most of my expert guests say that as well. I agree with your elitist source. I know who they are. I know they're at the highest circles. And I understand that a lot of the older elite, now that it's gotten to this point, don't like what's happening because they realize how destructive it is. But expanding on everything here, I know Russia's corrupt. I know Communist China's corrupt. I know that they made deals the Chinese did with the globalists in the 70s. So there's kind of a double crossing that goes on. Everybody, it's cloak and dagger, a balancing program. But I've heard what Putin said, and I've heard what some of the Chinese top folks have said and what the BRICS are saying. And they say, your global derivatives are destroying us. You mega bankers have done this. We don't want your new world order. We want our new world order. So it's a bunch of globalists who will use whatever tool of control there is on their population. They're all bad. They're all wanting the latest piece of control because they're control freaks. That's why they're in power. It's like cancer. It wants to control the body even though it kills it. So we know where this is going. But what does it do to the Anglo-American, European, U.S., England New World Order that the New World Order is so destructive that the other parts of the global system don't want to be second fiddle to it and don't want to go under Agenda 21. I mean, Putin's paying Russians to have kids. Putin's talking about poison in the vaccines. So I'm not saying Putin's a good guy either, but he is getting off the New World Order reservation. Did your elitist friends say anything about that?
Oh, positively. In fact, they realize they have a problem. And in the first portion of this, when I was talking about the three different factions that are going on out there right now, this renegade elite is what they're calling them. And that was the exact words he used to me. He called it a renegade elite. It is worrying them to death. The old-fashioned, the ones that are in their 70s and 80s now that still give me information, they are very concerned about this renegade elite that's out there that is not letting them do exactly what they want to do. But I go back to the dollar being dead. The dollar's already dead. It's like the dog limping home so he can die in the backyard. He hasn't gotten in the backyard yet. But people, 6 months, 9 months, a year from now, when these trillions of dollars return home that are not being used by these nations out here who have formed all of these agreements, they have already murdered the dollar. They have already shot it in the back. It is staggering into the backyard. Folks, you have the most glorious window of opportunity right now while the dollar still has some purchasing power to go out there and do everything that you're doing. Alex, we just bought a whole new camera system. I'm doing everything I can to spend everything I've got to get into something tangible. And this brings us down to solutions. You must change your mindset and think in terms of the day that you won't have that dollar, that the derivative market has crashed. Now, the derivative market will bring every currency in the world down at the same time. I don't care whether it's the Russians or the Chinese or America. That market is a quadrillion, and it'll bring all of them down. But in the meantime, you still have a dollar that has some value, and you can go out there and do something about it, but it's going to require a mindset change on the part of every person out there. Now, here's my suggestion. You need to so program your mind that you can be independent of every government agency. That's right. Now, you may be getting Social Security. Maybe you have food stamps and welfare, Medicare, Medicaid. That's right. Go ahead. You've got them. You paid for them. Enjoy them while you've got them. But you must have a mindset that is such that if that Social Security check didn't arrive after the physical cliff, that you could do without it. You must get a mindset change that if you had to go to the emergency room and wait for 24 hours in order to get service, you would know where some doctor is that you can go and pay him something under the table and get your help, or you're going to have that help at home in the medicine cabinet. And let me put it this way. If you were a farmer, what would you use as your own reserve currency? Now, please understand, I'm way out here in left field now. You cannot depend on the Federal Reserve. You cannot depend on the dollar any longer. If you were a farmer, what would you use as your reserve currency? No, not the Federal Reserve note, not the American dollar. It's gone. It's dead. It's out. It's shot. It's walking in the yard. If you were a farmer, you'd use food that you could raise on your farm, that you could sell and trade with somebody else. If you were a rancher, your alternative currency could be a cow. If you were a dairyman, your alternative could be milk. If you are a city dweller, which most of the people are in America, you had better have some gold and silver because it will pay your way through many, many adverse circumstances. In these next 4 years, you must have a mindset change and think in terms of the day that those food stamps may not be there, that Social Security may not be there. You will need those guns loaded, and you have an alternative currency that you can use to spare your house and keep food on the table of some kind.
And just to interject here, you notice the establishment media says none of us should ever own gold, even though it was $260 and is now $1,700 here in the last 12 years. But you look at governments, institutions, universities, the Chinese, University of Texas, they're all buying gold like it's going out of, I mean, they are just absolutely going crazy out there getting into gold. George Soros is buying it while saying you shouldn't hold it. What do you think's going on there?
Oh, they are buying it. They know what's happening. My elite friends are buying it. They're buying it by the tons. Listen, let me give you a definition of a rut. Now, all you patriots out there, I love you. I'm a part of you. You know what a rut is? A rut is a coffin with both ends knocked out. Somehow you're going to have a mindset change and get out of this rut, that this and that and the other, and start thinking of methods and ways that when all of this happens, you need that gold and silver. You need to watch I watch what my elite friend does. And when I see him do something, I do something. You remember back about, 3 years ago, Alex, I came on your show, and I said, I just made a survey of all my elite friends. I remember some of them's names, but I don't know where they are today. I only keep in touch with a handful of them. And I contacted them, and I said, where are all these other men? And I named them my name. I could not find a single elite that anywhere that is living in a city. Their primary, yes, they might have a penthouse there. They don't have a primary residence there. Their primary residence is out in the middle of nowhere. In fact, I was utterly amazed how many of my elite friends are living in the state of Alaska in the middle of nowhere. And when I see these people doing that, I do the same thing. I got out of the city. I bought gold, or my elite friend told me that gold was the currency of the elite. You must get out of the rut that you've been in for these years of thinking you have to do these things in a certain way, and you're going to have to think of methods of an alternative currency, of an alternative lifestyle, and of another way to be able to survive, and oftentimes it's going to have to be on your own, Alex.
Well, Lindsey, I'll tell you, there's thousands of points that, have our big flashing red arrows pointing in the direction that you and your source are talking about, but the 1.6 billion bullets bought by Homeland Security in the last year, since November of 2011, so a little more than a year, the buying thousands of armored giant black tanks, wheeled tanks, the digging in, the hardening of structures, the giant military brigades domestically, the TSA on the streets. I mean, they are gearing up like America is going to totally collapse because they're engineering it. They brag about it. A lot of what you're talking about, they publicly brag about because they know the public is sucking their thumbs watching television, running around just giggling like lobotomized monkeys or something. What do you expect to happen to the general thumb-sucking public as everything collapses, just begging on their bellies to the government? I mean, this is just the state is God is what we're about to be taught.
That's exactly what I expect the middle class to do. When your children start crying because they're hungry, and you haven't listened to what my elite friends have told me personally to do, and your children are crying, you are going to bow to the New World Order. I wish I could say it otherwise, but I don't know how to put it. There's so many of you that won't have a mindset change. And if you listen to what these people are telling me, you can spare yourself great heartaches. You don't have to stay awake at night. You don't have to look for black helicopters. Folks, please don't worry. You remember last year when I had 2012, the beginning of the end, and I said that one of the agendas of the elite was stress and pressure. And I said that I contacted person in the medical field, and I said, what happens whenever major pressure is placed on the human brain or human being? And they said, Chaplain, worry will shut the brain down. And I went back and I said, that's exactly why my elite friend told me that they are going to inject. Oh, you're going to have a terrorist attack next week. Oh, this is going to happen next week. That's going to happen. Physical cliff. Do you realize that this is nothing in the world but a scare tactic to get you to shut your brain down so you can't think about the things that you really need to be doing over these next years, a short period of time that you've got to get ready for the inevitable?
Amazing. Just incredible. Lindsey, I know you've got to go in about 3 or 4 minutes to do another interview, and I appreciate you giving us the exclusive on the radio yesterday and spending the last 50 minutes with us or so here today. In the 3 or 4 minutes you've got left, give out the number one more time for what their plan is and then how to protect for it, the two new DVDs.
Toll free, 1-888-799-6111, or on the web, prophecyclub.com. Or you can go, this is so amazing, a man in the United Kingdom set up a website for me because I was refused, told I couldn't have one. Go to LindseyWilliams.net, not .com, but .net if you wish. Now, please, we have put together 2 hours and 50 minutes of solutions, nothing but solutions. No hellfire and damnation, no scare tactics, nothing but solutions. We've never done this before. You can spare yourself grave heartache. Alex, you can stay in business. I can stay in business. Remember, there was only about a 3% that bucked the king, and as a result, the American Revolution became what it is. We are going to win. But in the meantime, you've got to know what these elite are telling you. Why do the elite tell me these things? They tell me for the sake of me being able to protect myself because of the respect they had for me years ago. But, Alex, the elite are out there. You said it a moment ago. You put it so correctly. You said they're actually laughing at us. That's exactly what's happened. I'll tell you somebody that they're laughing at more than anybody. There have been so many Christian prophets over the past year or two that have given prophets in the name of the Lord that hasn't taken place. And I'm sorry to have to tell you this, pastors, but the elite are actually laughing at the churches of America today. I mean, literally giggling at you because your prophets have been wrong, and you haven't raised up and done anything about it like moral majority did years ago. So, Alex, to the best that I can say is, please, 888-799-6111, prophecyclub.com. And, Alex, I consider it a privilege to be able to tell your audience what my elite have told me in order to spare themselves great heartache. You can.
Well, you know, undoubtedly they're planning to implode things. They've done it all over the world. It's their formula. They brag about it. None of this is really even secret. But you know, your source puts it very well and kind of gives us exactly what they're thinking. So I'm glad they're there. And Lindsey, thank you so much for coming on with us. We'll talk to you again soon.
Set that spiritual house in order first. Alex, thank you. Lord bless. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.